Welcome, folks, to a time when nature's chorus included pigs rhyming and monkeys enjoying a cheeky bit of tobacco. Hens, believe it or not, took snuff for courage, a peculiar habit, really, while ducks were just, well, ducks. Quack, quack, quacking their way through life. It was a wonderfully whimsical world, full of chatter and charm, but even in this idyllic existence, not everything was perfect, especially when it came to real estate. You see, building a decent nest wasn't as easy as it looked, and a certain feathered community was about to discover this the hard way. Our story truly kicks off during the Great Spring Squall, a windy catastrophe that exposed some serious architectural flaws. Imagine poor Bartholomew Badger mid-nap when * crash. Young Timothy Titmouse's rather precarious twig-and-leaf bachelor pad came tumbling down, landing right on Bartholomew's head. Feathers, twigs, and a very startled titmouse rained down. Timothy, bless his cotton socks, had tried his best, but his best clearly wasn't windproof. This wasn't just an isolated incident. Similar calamities were being reported all over Whispering Woods. It was, to put it mildly, a housing crisis of feathery proportions. Word spread like wildfire, or perhaps like a particularly speedy hummingbird. Madge Magpie was giving a nest-building masterclass. By dawn, the sunbeam clearing was aflutter with anticipation. Birds of every feather had flocked together, from the grandest eagle, who felt his current eyrie lacked a certain *g size qua to the humblest finch. There was a buzz of excitement, nervous chatter, and a fair bit of preening. This was the event of the season. Some had even brought tiny notebooks and charcoal sticks, ready to absorb Madge's wisdom. And then she arrived. Madge Magpie made her entrance not with a flutter, but with a purposeful, dignified glide, landing on a specially prepared teaching stump. She wore her tiny spectacles and a smart little tool belt from which peeked various useful-looking implements, a sharp twig for poking, a strong vine for binding. "All right, settle down," she chirped, her voice surprisingly commanding. "Today you will learn the true art of nest construction. There will be no shortcuts, no daydreaming, and absolutely no leaving early. Are we clear?" A chorus of eager, slightly intimidated chirps answered her. "First things first," Madge declared, picking up a clod of rich, damp earth with her beak. "The foundation. Without a solid base, your entire enterprise is doomed. Doomed, I say." She emphasized the point with a theatrical flick of her wing. Many a fine-looking nest has met a sticky end due to a wobbly bottom. Some of the birds shuffled their feet nervously, recalling their own wobbly-bottomed experiences. Madge selected a prime patch of ground beneath a sturdy branch, cleared it meticulously, and eyed her lump of mud with artistic intensity. With practiced ease, Madge began to shape the mud. She patted it, smoothed it, her claws working with surprising dexterity. Soon, a perfectly round, slightly concave mud cake lay before them. "Observe," she announced. "This, my feathered friends, is the bedrock of your future home. Strong, stable, and just the right consistency to hold everything together. It's not just mud, it's potential, it's security, it's a very good mud cake." She beamed, immensely proud of her foundational masterpiece. The crowd murmured in appreciation, impressed by the simple elegance of it. Suddenly, Barnaby Thrush, his eyes wide with revelation, chirped, "Oh, that's how it's done. A mud cake. Brilliant." And before Madge could utter a single "Now, hold on a minute," Barnaby, convinced he'd grasped the entire secret to nest building from this single step, gave a cheerful wave and zoomed off into the trees. "Got to get started," he called back. Madge blinked, her beak agape. "Well, I never, the impatience of some," she huffed, watching him disappear. The other birds tittered, a little embarrassed for Barnaby's hasty departure. Madge, regaining her composure with a dignified sniff, turned back to her remaining students. As I was saying, the mud cake is merely the beginning." She then selected a bundle of fine, pliable twigs. Next, we introduced structure. With delicate precision, she began to press the twigs into the edge of the mud cake, arranging them in a neat, circular palisade. "These twigs, my friends, will form the initial framework, the skeleton of your cozy abode. See how they interlock, how they support each other. Teamwork, that's the key." Professor Edgar Blackbird, adjusting his monocle for a closer look, nodded sagely. "Ah, yes, twigs reinforcing the primary earthen structure. Elementary, my dear Magpie, quite elementary." Convinced he'd now deciphered the complete architectural blueprint, he gave a curt nod. "My intellectual curiosity is satisfied. I shall implement this forthwith." And with a swish of his glossy black tail feathers, Professor Blackbird also took to the skies, leaving Madge looking even more exasperated. Intellectual curiosity, he hasn't even seen the tricky bits yet. She muttered under her breath. Right, Madge chirped, her voice a tad sharper now. For those of you who possess an attention span longer than a gnat's sneeze, we continue. She fetched another dollop of mud. Now we add another layer of mud asterisk over the twigs. This binds them, strengthens the walls, and provides excellent insulation. You don't want your little ones catching a chill, do you? She expertly smoothed the mud, integrating it with the twigs, her movements economical and precise. The structure was beginning to look more like a proper nest bowl now, sturdy and well-formed. Dr. Hoot Owl, who had been observing with studious intensity, blinked her large, round eyes. Yes, a sedimentary reinforcement layer, logically sound. The structural integrity is significantly enhanced. She scribbled a quick note on her tiny scroll with a charcoal stick. My analysis is complete. This methodology is clearly optimal. And with a dignified flap of her feathery wings, Dr. Hoot also departed, presumably to write a lengthy thesis on mud layering techniques. Madge just sighed. Optimal, we're not even halfway to weatherproof, my dear Professor Know-It-All. Honestly, Madge grumbled, addressing the now significantly thinned-out crowd. Is everyone in such a monumental hurry? She picked up a selection of longer, tougher twigs. Now, for the outer framework. We take these sturdier twigs and twine them around the outside. This gives the nest its final shape, its resilience against the elements, and, dare I say, a touch of rustic charm. She deftly wove the twigs, creating a beautiful, robust outer shell. The nest was truly taking shape, looking impressively secure and rather cozy, even in its unfinished state. And so, the Council of Concerned Avians was convened. Picture this, a motley crew of birds from the tiniest wren to the most boastful robin, all gathered on the branches of the old assembly oak. Chirps of frustration filled the air. My nest tilted again, squawked Mrs. Finch. Mine's got a draft you could fly a goose through, moaned a shivering Goldcrest. Young Pip Sparrow, ever the optimist, chirped, maybe we just need stickier sticks. The collective groan was deafening. Clearly, they needed more than sticky sticks. They needed an expert, a true nest-building guru. Young Pip Sparrow, his eyes practically popping out of his head with excitement, bounced on his little claws. Wow, twigs on the asterisk outside asterisk 2, that's the very thing, I get it now, and with a hyperactive wee. He was off like a shot, a tiny brown blur heading for the trees, presumably to create a nest that was all enthusiastic exterior and very little else. Madge shook her head, a small, sad smile playing on her beak. Slovenly, I expect, but at least he's enthusiastic, she conceded, looking at the few remaining birds. All right, you dedicated few, Madge said, turning to the handful of birds still present. Now for the truly delightful part, the lining. She produced a fluffy bundle of soft feathers, downy moss, and wisps of sheep's wool she'd collected. Comfort, my dears, is paramount. A nest isn't just a structure, it's a home. It must be soft, warm, and inviting. With gentle care, she began to line the interior of the nest, transforming it from a mere shell into a luxurious, welcoming haven. It looked incredibly snug. Stella Starling, who had been oohing and awing at every stage, positively quivered with delight at the sight of the plush lining. Oh, that suits me perfectly. Feathers, moss, divine, she cried, fluffing her own iridescent plumage. Comfort is everything, darling Madge. I've seen all I need to see. And with a glamorous wave of her wing, Stella Starling fluttered off, dreaming of the five-star nest she was about to create. Madge sighed. At least she appreciated the aesthetics, she murmured, looking at the almost empty clearing. And so it went. With each new, crucial step, Madge demonstrated a clever weaving technique for drainage, a special knot for securing the nest to a branch, the optimal angle for rain runoff. Another bird or two would have an epiphany, declare they'd learned enough, and fly off to implement their half-baked knowledge. Madge, bless her patient heart though it was wearing thin, continued her masterclass, her voice losing a little of its initial enthusiasm but none of its precision. She was a professional, after all, even if her audience was dwindling alarmingly fast. Madge was now demonstrating how to add a cunningly disguised emergency exit, a feature only the truly paranoid or exceptionally clever builder would consider. She meticulously wove a few loose strands that could be easily pulled apart from the inside. "And this, my friends," she announced with a flourish, "is for unexpected guests, shall we say." She looked up, expecting at least a chirp of appreciation for this advanced tip, but the clearing was silent. Utterly, profoundly silent, save for a gentle breeze rustling the leaves. Madge blinked. Had they all gone, even the quiet little warbler who'd seemed so interested in waterproofing? She scanned the clearing. Empty. No, wait, there, perched on a low branch, seemingly oblivious to everything, was Taffy Turtledove. He wasn't looking at the nest, he wasn't looking at Madge. He was staring into the middle distance, a dreamy expression on his soft, gray-feathered face, cooing softly to himself. Madge let out a long, slow breath. At least someone had stayed. Or had he? Taffy Turtledove hadn't paid a blind bit of attention to the entire masterclass. Not a single jot. While Madge was expounding on mud consistency and twig tensile strength, Taffy was lost in his own little world, humming a repetitive, rather monotonous little tune. "Take two, Taffy, take 200, he cooed over and over again, his head tilted slightly, as if listening to some private, internal rhythm. What two he was referring to, and who this Taffy character was, presumably himself, remained a profound mystery to all but him. Madge was just putting the final, most crucial twig across the very top of the nest, the keystone twig that held the whole domed roof together. It required absolute precision. "And this one," she muttered to herself, concentrating fiercely, "goes just so." Right at that critical moment, Taffy Turtledove's cooing seemed to grow louder. "Take two, Taffy, take 200. Madge, startled, nearly dropped the twig. "One's enough for this, thank you very much," she snapped, more at the interruption than at Taffy himself, whom she hadn't quite registered as her sole remaining student. But Taffy, oblivious, simply continued his rhythmic chant. "Take two, Taffy, take 200. The sound was beginning to grate on Madge's already frayed nerves. She was trying to explain the intricate cross-bracing that secured the roof, a truly ingenious bit of magpie engineering. This particular technique ensures maximum stability against high winds and woodpeckers with boundary issues, she was saying, mostly to the air, when Taffy's coo came again, perfectly timed to disrupt her train of thought. Keystone twig wobbled precariously. "One is quite sufficient, I assure you," Madge said, her voice rising in pitch, glaring in Taffy's general direction. She still hadn't fully processed that he was her only audience member. She was more annoyed at the persistent, distracting noise. It was like trying to perform delicate surgery with a brass band practicing next door. She took a deep, calming breath, or tried to. But the relentless, gentle, maddening coo persisted. "Take two, Taffy, take 200. It was the avian equivalent of water torture. Then from the highest branch, old Professor Hoot, an owl known more for his naps than his proclamations, blinked his large eyes. "Who, I recall," he began slowly, "a certain Madge Magpie, unsurpassed in her, nestcraft. Built the sturdiest home in 17 counties, they say." A flutter of excitement went through the crowd. Madge Magpie, of course. She was a legend, a bit of a recluse, but her nests were architectural marvels, strong, cozy, and stylish. If anyone could teach them, it was Madge. The question was, would she even consider it? "Take two of what, you incessant COOER?" Madge finally shrieked, whirling around. It was only then, as she faced him properly, that she saw the utter emptiness of the sunbeam clearing. No eager students, no curious onlookers. Just Taffy Turtledove still cooing his nonsensical refrain, "Take two, Taffy, take 200. The realization that she'd poured her heart and soul into a masterclass for an audience of one, and that one hadn't listened to a single word, was the final straw. Madge's spectacles steamed up. That was it. Madge Magpie, renowned architect, patient teacher, up to a point, finally snapped. With an indignant squawk that echoed through the now silent forest, she threw her final, perfect twig to the ground. "Right, that's it, I'm done. Never again. Build your own flimsy, wobbly, drafty nests for all I care." And with a furious flurry of black and white feathers, Madge Magpie soared into the sky, abandoning her perfect demonstration nest and her one, incredibly oblivious student. She vowed then and there never to share her secrets again. Taffy Turtledove watched Madge disappear into the distance, a faint frown creasing his feathery brow. He blinked slowly. The clearing suddenly seemed very quiet without her surprisingly loud squawking. He looked at the magnificent, abandoned nest. He looked at the spot where Madge had stood. Then, after a moment of profound contemplation or perhaps just continued obliviousness, he tilted his head and cooed softly to the empty air, "Take two, Taffy, take 200." Some mysteries, it seems, are destined to remain unsolved, especially those involving turtle doves. And so, dear viewers, if you ever wondered why birds build their nests in such wonderfully varied ways, now you know: the thrush with his sturdy mud bowl, the blackbird with his twiggy open-topped affair, the owl with her sensibly mud-layered platform, the sparrow with his rather untidy but enthusiastic jumble, the starling with her divinely comfortable, if structurally questionable, boudoir. Each took a piece of Madge's wisdom, but none waited for the whole recipe. A culinary catastrophe in nest form, if you will, scattered across the avian world. And that, as they say, is that. From that day forward, every bird built its nest just a little bit differently, a testament to their unique and uniquely impatient personalities, and the day Madge Magpie's masterclass went slightly off the rails. As for Madge, she stuck to her custom commissions, occasionally muttering about the importance of seeing things through. And the turtle dove, well, he just kept on cooing, presumably still pondering the eternal question of whether to take one, or indeed, two. Whatever it was, quack, 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 oh. A delegation was swiftly and somewhat nervously assembled. Leading the charge was Barnaby Thrush, ever enthusiastic if a tad impatient. He was joined by Professor Edgar Blackbird, who adjusted his monocle, certain his intellect would be key, and young Pip Sparrow, mostly there for the adventure and potential for dropped crumbs. Their mission: find Madge Magpie, appeal to her better nature or perhaps her vanity, and convince her to share her legendary nest-building secrets. No pressure, right? They packed a small offering of the shiniest pebbles and the juiciest berries, standard avian diplomatic currency. Their journey to Madge's part of the woods was filled with anxious chirps and strategic planning. "We must be polite," insisted Barnaby, "and articulate," added Professor Blackbird, preening slightly. Pip just hoped Madge wasn't too scary. Stories of her sharp beak and even sharper wit were legendary. They imagined her living in a fortress-like nest, possibly guarded by well-trained beetles. As they ventured deeper into the older part of the forest, the trees grew taller, the shadows longer, and the ambient birdsong seemed to hush in reverence, or was it fear? Finally, they arrived, and Madge's abode was magnificent, not a fortress but an intricately woven marvel nestled high in a grand old oak, complete with a tiny, perfectly crafted balcony. Madge Magpie herself was on said balcony, meticulously adjusting a wind chime made of iridescent snail shells. She was sleek, black and white, with intelligent, piercing eyes and a tiny pair of spectacles perched on her beak. She exuded an air of focused competence and definitely wasn't suffering from any shoddy construction issues herself. The delegation gulped, suddenly feeling very small. Barnaby, taking a deep breath, chirped up, "Esteemed Madam Magpie, we come on behalf of all birdkind." Professor Blackbird chimed in, "Your architectural prowess is renowned throughout the land. We humbly seek your tutelage." Pip, ever practical, added, "Our nests keep falling down." They presented their offering of shiny pebbles and juicy berries. Madge peered down, one eyebrow feather quizzically raised. She'd heard rumors of the recent nest-related kerfuffles. Honestly, some birds just didn't have a clue about basic load-bearing twig placement. It was almost embarrassing for the avian community as a whole. Madge descended gracefully, landing before them. "Teach you, my dear sirs, I am frightfully busy. My latest commission is a 3-story nest with a solarium for a rather demanding woodpecker." She tapped a tiny scroll with a claw. "Besides, nest building is an art, a science. It requires patience, precision, qualities I find rather lacking in, well, some." She eyed Pip's slightly disheveled feathers with a knowing glint. The delegation's faces fell. This was going to be tougher than they thought. Barnaby's optimistic hat seemed to droop a little. "But Madam Magpie," pleaded Barnaby, "think of the hatchlings, the cold winds, the sheer indignity of it all." Professor Blackbird added, "Your legacy would be cemented as the savior of avian architecture." Madge paused. Legacy, and perhaps the thought of fewer embarrassing nest collapses tarnishing the good name of birdkind. Plus, the shiniest pebble really was quite fetching. "Oh, very well," she sighed dramatically. "One masterclass tomorrow at the Sunbeam Clearing, and everyone must pay attention." The delegation erupted in grateful chirps. Success, Phase 1 complete.